Good afternoon, Ad Age viewers, everyone on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch. Please remember, send us your feedback, your questions, your comments, or just say hi to me, your host, Garrett Sloan, the technology reporter at Ad Age. And we have a special guest for everyone today. Joining us on remotely is Jennifer Prince, Twitter's global head of content partnerships, who is here for the next half hour. So welcome, Jennifer. So glad you can join us.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
And this is going to be great. I set up the conversation to have with you today because we're going to be doing a little discussion around NewFronts, which is Twitter is returning to this year. Last year was a weird year for everyone. So Twitter was not part of what was a sort of truncated NewFronts period. And so next week we got a big week. It's Twitter, TikTok, Amazon, Snapchat, YouTube. You're all presenting ad products, content to brands. And I'm calling that a pitch-a-palooza to advertisers. If maybe that'll catch on. And so just going into it, maybe you could tell me a little bit. What's your NewFronts attitude? What's this year all about? Without revealing too much, because I know you have some things to show and leave for the next week's presentation.
Yeah, we don't want to reveal too much, but we are very excited to be back at NewFronts, and we are excited to be weaving together our two offerings to brands, which is essentially Amplify and Arthouse. So when you think about how we engage with content and brands together, it's all about aligning with content and designing with content. And so we are focused, laser focused on all of the content partners that we've been working with. These are the content partners who you trust and love, and we've been working with them nearly a decade. So we are listening to consumers, of course, going to partners, making sure that we are landscaping, taking a whole survey of the landscape of the business and making sure that we're listening and learning and continuing to think about all of the consistent strategies that have worked so well for us so far as we've become this true premium video destination, but also reimagining, rethinking, and bringing newness to our NewFronts.
Absolutely. Amplify has been around for quite a while. That's where the publishers and the media brands, they get to post certain shows, programs. You always introduce new ones every year for NewFronts. And then the advertisers get sort of skippable pre-roll ads before them, or they're integrated with content. So I think the market's familiar with those. What's Arthouse, the other section of it?
Arthouse is where we are working with brands directly on their content and also working with artists, underrepresented voices, creators, influencers on doing more with content on the platform, letting their voices be heard. And brands oftentimes want to connect to not only these creators, these digital artists, they want to make sure that they're representing diverse perspectives and bringing together the best of what their brand message is connected to creatives. And so Arthouse is where we are working on making the way that content shows up even more creative. These are Twitter-first formats that we'll be excited to showcase at the NewFront.
Yeah, how new is Arthouse as a program for you in terms of getting creators more active in this sort of environment?
Yeah, we are on year 2+ of Arthouse as a brand. And it's really bringing together content editing, content production, how we work with influencers and creators, and also just thinking about even when a brand is aligning with content in Amplify, there is a Twitter-first experience where the way that alignment shows up is very creative forward, and we'll be showcasing what that looks like next week.
And sure, and then of course for the past year, you've been sort of obviously talking to brands and marketers, and you always are. But last year we couldn't do it at NewFronts because it was postponed. The pandemic hit. There were questions. Brands didn't know where they wanted to park their ad dollars. They need some flexibility. They didn't know if it made as much sense to do NewFronts. Did that change Twitter's attitude in terms of how it goes to talk to brands and marketers? And what do you think now this year you do get to go back? Why is it important to?
Yeah, so Twitter wasn't exactly silent, although we weren't in the NewFronts last year. We did a lot of events virtually, and we were just producing those shows and events on our own. And our touch points with our partners, with brands, with our best customers did not skip a beat just because we were mostly working from home and staying safe inside of our homes. And so we just did, for example, another event called What's Happening. We did an event last year. And so NewFronts is just, once again, this domino effect of the continual messaging of Twitter's place in the world of video, bringing premium content that's brand safe to the platform to brands to align with. And then once again, really thinking and reimagining what it means to get creative with how content shows up on Twitter. So we already know that so many are participating on Twitter, but when you think about that conversation layer to content, whether that content is being streamed, watched in a living room, watched in the, in your hand or on a big screen, if it's live or if it's not live, we are the conversation layer to this content. And so we have partnered with all of the most trusted brands and content partners over the years. And we're just going to be showcasing more of what we're doing, but also teasing and leaning into how we have listened to our consumers and how we have talked to content partners and brands to see what they need more of. We want to get better always. And so this will be a great showcase of doing more with what we call sports and the power of sports, for example, and then the number one conversation around music, leaning into not only food and lifestyle and self-care, but also just, blowing it out with diverse perspectives and diverse content and bringing more of that to the platform. So a lot is ahead and we're excited for you to tune in.
And part of what advertisers are interested in is they want to sort of commit their ad dollars in a predictable way. We want to sort of know what sort of audience we're going to get, where we're going to appear, and we're going to do these commitments to platforms like Twitter. Are you seeing more interest in locking in ad deals this year, as last year may have been a little more about flexibility? Is there more brands need to get their sort of inventory for advertising locked in?
Yeah, I mean, we are the perfect complement to linear buys. So whenever a brand is committing to anything on linear, they always are thinking of also committing to Twitter to get to the conversation layer around the sports, entertainment, lifestyle, gaming content, and more. And so because we have become that perfect partner, it's that whole better together concept. We have really been doing a great job of not only meeting with social teams, but video buyers and linear teams and all of the creatives, not just the media side and the marketing side, to really bring together holistically how Twitter can play a role in these full funnel marketing plans. And so we are definitely talking to audiences who are looking to spend. We continue to up-level ourselves in our partnerships with brands, our upfront partnerships, creating these joint business plans together. We're always getting upstream and trying to get in with our partners at the earliest and deepest level so that we can move forward with providing the best offerings and solutions around content and creative and the marriage of both. So we're looking forward to being able to speak to this incredible audience. They're our friends, they're our partners, they're our brands. And so we really look forward to showcasing what it means to invest in Twitter, but also getting extreme value out of that investment.
And we're gonna talk about Twitter as a second screen in a moment, but before I do, I'm going to do our usual shout outs to the audience out there that is watching, as Dave Perry from Michigan just flashed on the screen. But I also have Mahmoud from Iran, Catherine from Washington, Rosanna from New York, John from Washington, D.C., Sabir from Pennsylvania, Wendy from North Carolina. And again, I'm Garrett Sloan, the host here at Age Technology Reporter, and Jennifer Prince is the Global Head of Content Partnerships at Twitter. So we're here talking with you still about NewFronts and everything. And Twitter being a second screen, as you were just saying, where the TV market is saying we're going to have they have their upfronts and broadcast upfronts. We do NewFronts in digital. And what do you see out there from you had a recent deal with NBC Universal, I think. You struck a multi-year partnership where they're doing live events and you'll be a second screen. How does that fit in? to the
Yes.
strategy?
So we've always been known as the second screen, as you've already mentioned to the audience. We also know that Twitter is that first scroll when anything is happening in the world. So speaking of our incredible partners at NBC Universal Sky, we have an expanded partnership that got announced, and we've been deep working with NBC for nearly a decade. The way that NBC is capitalized, with a follower base across many handles. It's incredible to see the reach and the scale of their fans and audience who spend time on Twitter. And so we are, continuing to partner with content from sports to Olympics to news to entertainment, lifestyle, and more. I mean, the depth and breadth of their content globally, inclusive of Sky. We just brought together all of the pieces that we've been working with for many years into one expanded global, larger partnership. And we're very excited to be, arm in arm with them as we go speak with the marketplace together.
What's going on with the Olympics this year? I think people are still wondering how that's going to pan out. Have you got any insider tips being at Twitter? Everyone knows, you're plugged into what's happening.
Well, we know the conversation is massive around Olympics globally on Twitter. And so we also look forward to what's coming this summer with the Olympics and in partnership with NBC Universal and more.
Sure. And I do have to ask a little bit. We were just talking about just how you have all these programs, and with Amplify and the Art House, and just knowing what content there is, brands want to have that sort of predictability of the content they appear in on Twitter. I imagine that's part of your mandate, is talking about brand safety and why these programs that are like for video, if I'm a major soft drink maker, I'm a restaurant chain, I know I'm going to pair with content that has adjacency and sort of these brand safety controls built in. Is that part of what you're hearing from the marketplace?
Yeah, always. I mean, of course, we know that premium content rises to the top in terms of brand safety and trust, known IP, bringing in content from these massive brands. They're distributing on Twitter, right? And they're reaching more scaled audiences on Twitter. It's such a natural fit. And so we haven't had brand safety issues with our Twitter Amplify product. However, we are continuing to, of course, expand our staple of who and how we are making sure that everything is brand safe on Twitter, not only content alignments, but just in general. And so we will have more announcements about how we are continuing to prove the value around not just these trusted content sources on Twitter, but also just ensuring that it is safe to be a brand that's aligning with content around gaming and creators and news and more. And so, yes, you'll be hearing more from us on brand safety, of course, as we continue to invest and we continue to make it a top priority on the platform.
And this is becoming an interesting space. Spaces, Twitter Spaces. I guess this is the audio is the rage. Clubhouse sort of sparked it, but Twitter seems to be a natural place where if you're a popular account, you can sort of start streaming your audio. You don't have to get on video like us. You can just start doing a sort of talk or panels or anything you might want to think about in audio. How are you? First, is space is going to be a big part of what you're talking to brands about at NewFronts and just in general?
Well, we're excited to be using spaces ourselves. And yes, our content partners are able to be hosting and creating spaces and joining in on any audio conversation. When you think about an audio space, just like you were comparing to video, it's a really light lift. You can do it from anywhere. It's audio. And so you can be doing something else in the background as you are participating or listening into a conversation. And I'm very excited about what Spaces is bringing to Twitter for users especially, but also how there will be content partners who will be participating. And so we've done some spaces so far that I can note, which would be around the Grammys, and CBS and the Recording Academy is one example where the official after party for the Grammys was hosted by DJ D Nice and had 24,000 people who were joining in and speaking about the love for music. I was in that space and really enjoyed, after watching a show and highlighting and celebrating all of the music in the world, to then be able to join a conversation as shoulder content, as an after party, as kind of an after show to what was on linear, for example, and what was being talked about, in massive amounts on Twitter. And so that was one example. We also had Nick Jonas, who hosted a space with more than 25,000 people, and it was talking about his new album and getting fans engaged and answering questions from fans. We had Widen the Screen on Sunday, surrounding the Oscars, which was Procter & Gamble was behind this initiative and is behind this initiative to help with Black representation within creators on screens, big screens, large screens, those who are creating content, producing content, and those who are, in content themselves. And so that initiative they used Spaces beautifully to have a very thoughtful conversation about widening the screen. And so we're excited about what it means to have a new format, a new space to create content within. And you'll be sure to hear more about this at NewFronts. And we're even taking advantage of doing a post-after party as an after conversation to our own NewFront, hosted by some tweeps who will be talking with brands and agencies and anyone else who wants to join the conversation for even after our own NewFront. So we're creating content with creators and doing pre-shows and post-shows, and that's what you can look forward to with content partners also starting to put this into their strategies on Twitter. We're very excited about Spaces.
Any of the famous people you could say will be at NewFronts? We saw Amazon say they had some Catherine O'Hara, I believe, would be presenting. Twitter's got some people in its lineup. Anyone you're allowed to say?
No, but we will have industry celebs and others who will be joining. So I think everyone will be very excited to see, who's coming to the show, celebrity or not.
Now, talking about creator, well, first I want to ask about, we did get a question in from LinkedIn, which we always like to see the audience participate from either like LinkedIn or from Twitter or from Facebook or Twitch. So we're on all four as well as our own website. So someone chimed in from LinkedIn on this one. Debashis asked what your idea of great content is. What do we see, and why does anything become viral on Twitter?
So great question. I wish I had the magic answer for my own tweets. However, when we think about content and making it for Twitter or with Twitter, or the best executions are like the only on Twitter executions, which can be short and snappy, can be catchy, can be powerful, can have movement attached to it, can have, underrepresented artists and creators, not just those like celebrities. And so I would say that the more you work with your content best practices of how not to just take an asset that exists elsewhere and try to make it work on Twitter, working with a team like Art House, for example, on all of the ways to really think about how creative can become viral, can take off. And it really just takes a lot of testing and learning and experimenting with content to make sure that you are trying it all. And I think every brand, every content partner, every content creator is just finding different tactics and strategies that work for them, depending on the type of content that it is. So there isn't like the magic answer on how to get something to go viral. I would just encourage testing and being creative and being thoughtful about experimentation.
And I was going to ask about this, which is just sort of part of what's going on Twitter. And like you said, the positivity and what you're trying to foster in terms of what content is just making people feel good, or what's not making them feel good. And recently we saw Chrissy Teigen is like one of your most famous Twitter users, and she was off the platform for a little bit, and people were saying maybe it's because there is a negative, or I don't know if people always have the best experience, and then she came back. I was just wondering how important it is to have those types of people have a positive experience. And Chrissy Teigen in particular, I don't know if you have anything to do with enticing her back, but
I wish I could just personally reach out to her, but there are people at Twitter who do. So we have a team that's working with talent and partners day in and day out to make sure that their experience on Twitter is the best for what they want to get out of it. And so although Chrissy has endured a lot in her life, which could have something to do, we don't know, with her needing to take a break, we do know that she's not just back. We love her. We love her madly. She is the mayor of Twitter and is known for that. And she just does Twitter so perfectly and so right for her. And so we are always trying to create the best experiences for celebrity, for talent, for VITs, and making sure that they do stay. And so we're thrilled to have Chrissy back, and we love her madly.
So she's the mayor of Twitter, and Twitter is now one of the top Time 100 companies. Did I see you tweet that just this week?
Yes, I did tweet that. Yeah, so Twitter's in Time 100's 2021 most influential companies, and it's the place in the world that Twitter has. It's hard for you to escape Twitter, right? If you're watching television or if you're speaking with friends, and Twitter just continues to show up because what's happening in the world is what's happening on Twitter. We really capture everything, and it's not just about connecting with those that you do know, right? And showcasing your personal side. It's so much about what your interests are, what you want to create in terms of conversation and being thoughtful around topics that matter to you, whether it's movements and just making a difference in the world, hearing about what's happening in your favorite interests. And so we're really excited to not only be on that list, because I have been here almost 8 years and I'm super proud to work at Twitter and find that we are finally being recognized as one of the most influential companies, which I think we've always been. But also when it comes to NewFronts, and circling back to NewFronts, we're excited to show not only what we do so well with content and brands and what that means to the marketplace and how we partner, and we put so much care into how we partner, but also we have listened to users and we have listened to our audiences and brands alike. And so we're excited for the content that we're going to put forward in next week's NewFront in terms of some more of the same, some new, and really thinking of getting into other categories that I think will make a difference to not just users, but in the world. So we're very excited about it.
And
it marries to us being influential for sure.
You've also mentioned a few times the idea that of the importance, obviously, of diversity, equity, and inclusion in programming and creators. And it's just a theme I'm hearing throughout when I talk to advertisers, ad agencies, and platforms. And it's obviously been an important year for just politically speaking, racially speaking, just civically speaking. What is your outreach like to the diverse communities out there, from Black Twitter to the Asian American, Pacific Islander communities? They're all LGBTQ plus. Everyone has a very big voice on Twitter. How is that going to manifest itself next week?
Yeah. So one, we work with influencers, creators, underrepresented voices every single day. And we're helping brands who need to align if they aren't already, but not just in these moments or these beats. It needs to be woven throughout everything that everyone is doing on a everyday basis, not just a few times a year. And so where we can get creative with our team, like Next, connected to Art House. Next is our brand strategy team. That's like a creative shop internally working with brands on the next big idea, these moments worth talking about. Connected to Art House, where we're literally content editing and producing and bringing in artists and underrepresented voices. And so we have so much work around not only connecting to diverse communities, but also bringing voices into the mix and making it a part of everything that we do. And so you'll be definitely hearing from partners and from Twitter next week at our NewFront of how this is at the centerpiece of what we are doing with working with brands on content that's on Twitter. But also all of these diverse communities and audiences are on Twitter. And it's so important for not only the space to serve the public conversation, which Twitter does every single day, to allow for these movements and or for this messaging to get out to the world, but where brands can tap into this is really where I think the magic can happen. And we'll be showcasing a lot of this next week at the NewFront. We're excited for you to see it and tune in.
And it sounds like one of those trends there is this creator community. People want to be able to be on Twitter and make their livelihoods. They want to be on any platform and make their livelihoods. But Twitter in particular, it seems like if I tweet, can I turn that into something for my career, my art, my creativity? Art House sounds like one way. Are you focusing more on that creator aspect of things, whereas you have been a media publisher focused for a long time though too?
Yeah, well, years ago, we had acquired Niche, just as one example. And so we have worked with scores of creators on making millions of dollars by way of marrying brands with creators and influencers. And this has been something we've done for many, many years, and we've done it so well. And so where we have taken this concept of Art House, which is working not only with these digital artists and creators, but also helping brands with their own content, we definitely have always had this focus. So it's not just starting now at this year. So creators are so important to us. If you think of even the newer formats that you're starting to see in terms of consumer features on Twitter, it's so much about creation. Think of fleets, think of spaces. And so we are very excited to be continuing our march towards getting individuals, creators, artists, not only getting more known and more elevated on our platform amongst audiences globally, but also getting commissioned by brands to work with them. And so this is definitely a strategy that's been consistent for us and that will continue to be pushing forward in the marketplace.
Two quick questions, because we're going to run out of time here, even though I could probably talk to you all day about all this stuff. But you mentioned fleets. That's your short form video. They disappear. You're a fleet user. What do you fleet about? What are people supposed to fleet about on Twitter?
I mean, a fleeting thought. So it could be anything. And if you feel like tweeting is a touch of a heavier lift and you can quickly just fleet, and you see your fleet line at the top of your timeline where you can just go in and scroll and watch people's moments, whether they're imagery or videos, or a lot of people fleet tweets. And so it's a great way to connect very quickly in a snappy way. And once again, it's just a little bit lighter of a lift. It's very consistent with how you're using this type of a product on other platforms. And so I personally love fleeting. So this weekend, it was a few pictures of being outside with kids, to soccer, to things that we're cooking. It's a great way to connect once again with who you connect with on Twitter. And you can see not only users like myself using fleets, but also brands and content creators. And so it's a great showcase of content in a different surface area on Twitter.
I'm going to let a viewer get the last question here. Alexandra, again, from LinkedIn, and she asked if what is the most creative partnership, studio, network partners that you've done personally? What strikes you just right in the mind there?
Oh my goodness. I've done a ton of work with studio and network partners over time. Thanks for the question, Alexandra. I would say watch parties has been something that became, it pretty much was born last year as everyone was home in the comfort of their homes and in the safety of their own homes. And a watch party is taking talent and creators and creating this co-viewing experience where you create a day and a date, you show up and you are watching something together on Twitter. And so we have done this with so many of the different content creator and entertainment companies and sports leagues, et cetera, on creating this shoulder content-like environment that creates this kind of pre-show, or you can do a post-show of this watch party environment. And so we've created playbooks for folks who are looking to do watch parties. We can monetize watch parties. And so it's taking what used to be that talent Q&A that used to come to Twitter, but it's creating it once again in this co-viewing experience and gets fans and audience excited as a pre-show or a post-show to the main content itself. And so we've done that with Universal with Trolls, which was deep last year in the beginning of of this pandemic, where we really got to showcase what it meant to get people to rally. We did it with Disney Plus, with Hamill Film. We do them day in and day out with every company you can imagine who has content to showcase. And so if you get access to talent and IP and showrunners or filmmakers to be able to talk about content before you go watch content together, it's truly what Twitter provides, which is access to things you can't get elsewhere. And so watch parties, I think, and how we've partnered with studios and networks has been something really exciting that our teams have been working on, that we love as a newer format and a newer way of presenting content on Twitter to audience.
And well, on that note, thank you, Jennifer Prince, again, for joining us from Twitter. And that's it for me, Garrett Sloan at Remotely. And thank you to everyone watching and the Ad Age production team, Alfred Mascaroni, Max Sternlicht, and Emma Sakula. So we'll see you again soon at next week's NewFronts. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Garrett. Thanks, everyone.